So much. Our last speaker is Louise Cainkar. Louise Cainkar is Professor of Sociology and Social Welfare and Justice at Marquette University. She is the Director of Marquette's Peace Studies Program and is on the Executive Committee of Marquette Center for Peacemaking. She is the author of 4 books and numerous articles and book chapters. Recent books published by Syracuse University Press include the co-edited Sajillu Arab American, a reader in Swana Studies, with Pauline Hom Stevenson and Amira Jarmakani, a 2023 book award winner from the Arab American National Museum and Arab American Woman, Representation and Refusal 2021 with Michael Suleiman and Suat Joseph, which has received 2 national book awards, including Choice Outstanding Academic Title for 2022. Her 2009 book, Homeland Insecurity, the Arab American and Muslim American Experience After 9/11, also received multiple national awards. Dr. Cainkar was awarded Marquette University's 2024 Wade Klingler Senior Research Fellowship for her work on Muslim women settling Afghan refugees, and the 2023 Nora Finnegan Ware Award for Excellence by Marquette University Alumni Women. She currently works with the Milwaukee Muslim Women's Coalition on a project to support Afghan women refugees and serves on the board of the community-based Arab American Action Network in Chicago. Cainkar has been recognized for outstanding contributions to the city of Chicago as a Carnegie Corporation Scholar and as a Fulbright Scholar. The title of her talk today is U.S. Muslim Woman-Led Refugee Resettlement. Please help me in welcoming her.
I thought you were going to edit that bio. Terrible. Thank you. Last day, last paper, last panel. Here we are. We love Palestine, don't we? Well, I'm really honored to be here. Thank you, Maria, Aisha. I'm really humbled to be in the presence of so many scholars of Islam and Muslim women. This is not my field. So I open my work to your critique. I'm happy to present it to you. As I said, I'm not a scholar of Islam and religion, but I am a sociologist, and I have accompanied the journey of U.S. Muslims for a few decades now through racism, policing, and the wars connected to empire. That's mostly what I read about. Many low points. Anyhow, this is my latest journey, which is a little bit different. So just summarize the context. I think you know. Can I move this thing so I can see? I guess I can see it. You probably know some 80,000 Afghan refugees. Not all of them are officially refugees. I'll try to avoid the official stuff, but a lot of them are parolees, actually, which means they could be expelled from the United States. And Donald Trump has promised to do that, actually. They were kept on military bases for 6 months because the resettlement system here had been depleted by the Trump administration's policies. So there was nobody to resettle them. After that, about 400 Afghans landed in Milwaukee, where I teach, and 2,000 in Metro Chicago, where I live. So that's what got me interested in this project. So the Biden administration implemented this new private-public resettlement program as an alternative to these traditional agencies, or establishment agencies, as I call them, that had been depleted, religious congregations, sponsor groups, etc. They formed a private nonprofit foundation to fund the work of these agencies. And then we have also in Illinois, very progressive vis-a-vis immigrants, also provided tens of millions to help with the Afghan resettlement. So the financials actually do matter in this story, but I'm not going to focus a lot on them. So it was interesting to me that 4 U.S. Muslim women-led community organizations became engaged in Afghan resettlement. This is not something they had engaged in at any prior time. All of them were headed by Arab Americans. Okay, I'll talk about the agencies later. So, you know, it's interesting to me that commonly held ideas of sameness by funders and stakeholders, like people with the system, assume that because Arabs were Muslims and Afghans were Muslims, that this was just going to be a perfect fit. You know, right? I don't have to tell you the ideas behind this thinking. And you know this too, but I have to explain this to people. Arabs and Afghans are not the same. They don't speak the same language. They don't have the same modern history. They don't live in geographic proximity. And normally in refugee resettlement in the United States, if you don't have the language capacity, you don't have capacity. That's how they see it. So this, in normal times, this matchup would not have happened. Furthermore, this assumption of like, oh, they're Muslims, so they have the same religious beliefs, and that's all we need to make this work. And I was like, well, what does it have to do with refugee resettlement? Which I'll explain to you, refugee resettlement. So these are the people I interviewed for this little study I did. Niraman Tahat and Al Shalabi with Arab American Family Services in Chicago. They are Palestinians. We have the largest Palestinian community in the United States in Chicago. Sheila Badwan, also Palestinian, in Milwaukee, Hanan Refugee Group. Suzanne Achas Salul, who just got elected as a state representative. Syrian Community Network, and Janan Najib, also Palestinian, Milwaukee Muslim Women's Coalition. So these are my people and their agencies. So this is just kind of interesting to me. Arab American Family Services was established in 2001 in Chicago to assist Arab American families in accessing social programs and services. So, you know, locked out. I mean, that's summarizing. Like, this is, of course, another story I could talk for hours about, but you know, locked out of social services, locked out of health services, locked out of everything. And that's from their website, understanding that for Arab Americans, culture, religion are a strong component. The Syrian Community Network, on the other hand, was established in 2015 because when the Syrian refugees came, there was nothing for them. And those of you who were here remember 28 governors signed bills that they would not allow Syrians in their state. Trump called them Trojan horses. Terrible time, right? Muslim ban. So actually the Syrian community and the Muslim community in Chicago had to take that on themselves, really on a voluntary basis. Milwaukee Muslim Women's Coalition, established in 1994, all-volunteer agency to counteract negative images of Islam and Muslim women. And from their website, we envision a world in which women and girls are nurtured and empowered to reach their fullest potential, social justice, compassion, respect. Hanan Refugee Group, again, the emergency of the Syrians with nobody to help them. That's where Hanan was established, all volunteer. This is interesting to me now. Just recently, Islamic Relief has become an official certified State Department refugee resettlement agency. So this is new. And Hanan is a local affiliate. So I find it interesting that their website reads like the website of an establishment refugee resettlement agency. So I'm not even going to read it to you. That's what all those agencies say. So it's interesting to me, like, if you work for the state, do you become like the state? I don't know. Like, this is I don't think Hanan would do that, but anyhow, this is an empirical question, right? So anyhow, my study questions was like, I was just curious, like, was there a good fit between Arab Americans and Afghans, right? Rather than take this for granted, like, was there a good fit? Did it work? And if it worked, why did it work? Did Muslim women-led organizations do anything differently than traditional resettlement agencies? So here's the process, right? We'll get you housing, we'll give you some furnishings, we're going to provide you access to jobs, access to ESL classes, we'll get 8 months of cash payments to you, enroll you in medical assistance. That's our refugee resettlement program in this country. People are case managed. by a manager who speaks the language. That's the requirement. And you're supposed to be self-sufficient in 9 months. And you have to repay your airfare to the Afghans. Didn't have to do this, but Syria, everybody else has to repay their airfare. And did Muslim women's leadership make a difference in services for women and children? Standard refugee resettlement, this is in my paper, it's much longer. Standard refugee resettlement totally ignores women and totally ignores children and totally ignores mental health. There is nothing. If you want to work, we'll get you a job. There's no childcare. Okay. And how does deconstructing the terms Islam, Muslims, they're catch-all terms in the United States, right? They get stereotypes, right? And so it's not good what they're catching. So, I mean, they understand, they understand Islam as like Judaism, Christianity, Islam, or whatever, all these like foundational beliefs, right? That's all there is to it, like la ilaha illallah, whatever, I believe in Jesus, these foundational beliefs, that's all there is to religion. Okay, so I told you about my methodology. All right, whew, can I slow down now? Yeah, rush through that. Here's what mattered. Well, these agencies already had capacity to do this work. They were already established agencies run by Muslim women. They didn't necessarily do refugee resettlement, but they did do social services. And they were built out of serving earlier waves of refugees, right? Either Palestinians or Syrians. I have another agency, Iraqi, but I'm still working on that because it's male run. It's a little more challenging. Empathy. By the way, these are things just missing in these establishment agencies. So I'm not going to talk about those agencies, but believe me, just think of case managed. That to me kind of summarizes. So Arab American-led agencies, what they told me is they had a lot of empathy for Afghans, but not in the ways that these stakeholders or outsiders imagine, which was about religion, right? They talked about sharing their experiences as refugees, as experienced militarized violence. They understood the trauma of violence. They understood the precariousness of family that was left back in the homeland. So here's some quotes. As Palestinians, we know what it means to be a refugee, to be without a home. We have seen our mothers and fathers struggle. Another person said to me, because we know the horrific impact of American policy on these countries, we also have a duty to assist them. Also, these communities have a lot of social capital. I mean, if you know about Arab Americans, they're very good with business. So, they have restaurants, and also the professions, right? They have physicians, they have dentists, they have restaurants, they have store owners, they have Uber drivers, and so they were able to bring, for a while the Afghans in Chicago were stuck in a hotel, actually most places in motels. They would bring doctors to these motels, right? They would bring dentists to these motels. They would bring food that they would enjoy to these motels. They just engaged, and on an Islamic spirit of, we need to take care of people. Like one said to me, the Prophet Muhammad was a refugee. We have to do this. So they were very good at utilizing social capital. Believe me, none of these things would happen under the traditional model. Excuse me. Here's another thing they share that isn't assumed or talked about by the stakeholders. I mean, they said, this is an Islamophobic society, and we know what it's like to live in this society, and we know how to function in this society, and we can share those skills with people. We gave them examples of how you get in trouble, and you will be assumed guilty if you're a Muslim, right? And to be conscious of who's around you, because you have to worry about attacks. In Illinois, the state wanted to resettle some of the Afghans in the southwest suburbs, and they didn't want to live there because those are majority white places. And so the Arab American agencies said, we understand that. We understand why you don't want to live in these kind of places and you want to live in a more diverse area. Respect for women. I mean, this was just incredible. So I did a little media study a part of this project, and we studied 20 years of major US newspapers. This will not surprise you either. And we found that Afghan women were portrayed as victims in almost 60% of those articles, right? 26% of them, they were victims of the Taliban, but in 31%, they were victims of their own religion and its backward culture. So, you know, as I said here, if there was any population that would bristle at these portrayals of Muslim women, it would be Arab American Muslim women, right? Because they are also victims of these portrayals. But, you know, when I talk to kind of establishment agency people, I didn't systematically interview them, but they'd be like, oh, those Afghan women, they're so hopeless. You know, they're so backwards, they're so male-dominated. Like, they just had nothing for them because they had all these assumptions in their head. Whereas these agencies came in with respect, and they're like, we'll meet them where they're at. We'll meet them where they're at. And there was variation, right? So they had ESL for women. They provide any program for women, and there were programs for women, which is also something new. They had transportation and childcare, because if you want programs for women, you have to have these things, right? They did driving lessons to women, sewing workshops, counseling, trauma-informed restorative circles. They added women to bank accounts. These establishment agencies put only the male, this money coming from the U.S. government, only the male head of household was put on the bank account. So it was these Muslim women agencies who were like, no, you have to add the woman head of household onto the bank account. So really a lot of respect for women, and again, like, we understand you, we understand where you're at, and how, and jobs for women, right? Like the refugee resettlement agencies wanted to put them in jobs that these women considered undignified. These agencies understand that, right? And they understand that some women don't want to work because they have children. Like, that wasn't, you're not being self-sufficient, right? Oh, this is just a project I raised money for this one in Milwaukee, but it is run by the Milwaukee Muslim Women's Coalition. It's like sewing workshops, and then we have these restorative, trauma-informed restorative circles. Respect for the centrality of extended family. 1 minute, okay, I can do it. You know, they said, like, people would send half the money they made back home, and this is considered, no, you can't do that, you gotta be self-sufficient. But these agencies understood that, like, if I can't eat if my family can't eat, that's what this is. Well, okay, Dean. So I can't really do this in a minute, but because it's not my area. 2 minutes. I mean, like, I knew from observation that these Muslim American agencies and the Afghans, you know, worked because they were treated with respect. And they were treated with respect, and if you know it, you know what I'm talking about. I call it D. The way you walk, the way you dress, the way you talk, the way you sit, the humility, right? A comportment, a way of being that shows people you respect them. This is, as I say, it's like I had to kind of pull this out of my interviews because it's taken for granted by them, but I observed it, and you know, it's a way of comporting oneself, right? And it's not religion in the way Western world understands religion, right? And this, like, non-Muslims can and do practice deen or aspects of deen, right? So it's kind of a complex topic. It's way beyond my capacity, but I'm having fun with it. So deen, yeah, Islamic practices. Okay. Conclusions. These really are redundant, and I'm sorry about that. I tried to fix them when I could. Arabs and Afghans were a good fit for each other, but some elements of that fit had more to do with their shared positions in a world dominated by the narratives and alliances of U.S. empire, rather than with shared religious beliefs. These affinities were critically important because they allowed for a type of communication and understanding unlikely to be found among persons whose ideas about Arabs and Muslims and Arab and Muslim women are colored by the U.S. media, which is the majority of the U.S. population, frankly, and a lot of the staff at these traditional agencies. Women-led agencies went well beyond traditional case management. Their work was informed by deen, this Islamic practice of respect, hospitality, and dignity, and they embraced the needs of women and children. They paid attention to mental health. Okay. I'm just calling out the stakeholders that their ideas were misconceived. To me, the irony of all of this is that the source of the anti-woman, I call the U.S. model anti-woman. It is really anti-woman. The U.S. refugee establishment model is anti-woman, and I have a long thing on that in my paper. The source of that anti-woman model is the same source that says we have to save Muslim women. Like, look at the contradiction there, right? The sexist model. And then this just relates to my own work. Like, you know, most of my work is about complicating and challenging these stereotypes about Muslims and people from the East. Like, that's what I do. Because these ideas are used to defend racism, violence, war. You know what they're all being used to defend. But I said, wait a minute now. Here I found something that is shared. And it's a beautiful thing. So I'm like, well, maybe the problem isn't sameness. It's what sameness is accentuated, right? And that this is a sameness worthy of lifting up and shouting out. Shukran.